Hello, everybody. If you don't know who I am, and you weren't here earlier, my name is Dan Kirby, and I had the idea for the festival. Yeah, that's right. That's the correct response from the lady down here. She says, "Thanks, we love you." We've got that on tape. Excellent. And I'd just like to take the opportunity, whilst we're all in the room, to say, whilst I had the idea, I did not purely make this thing happen. There's a team of incredibly talented people who've kind of congregated around the idea, who've made it happen. So can we please have a big round of applause for Team Getahead? And I would particularly, whilst I had the idea, I'm good at having ideas and not actually following through on actually making things happen. So there's a lady called Jenny Cochran. Is Jenny here? If she's not here, please give a big hand to Jenny, because she is the queen of everything and she's made it happen. Now, I'm very excited to be able to sort of sit here with this gentleman, because he has kept my children busy for several hours every weekend for several years with his product Moshi Monsters. So thank you. I got to read the paper. We were humbled, actually, and flattered that Michael reached out to us on Twitter and offered his help, I guess. And I would like to add that making this festival happen has felt like falling down a hill. Pulling things and hoping to pull it together by the end. So having somebody or people reach out to help and offer their support has been incredibly great. So big round of applause, please, for Michael for being here today. And he's offered his time to speak with me. We're going to have a short conversation, and then we're going to open it up for questions from you guys. And I think I'm excited to sort of go slightly behind the curtain, because a theme of the day has been, you look at other people and you see these success stories and you think, oh, I'm a failure because I'm not in the Times, or I haven't got 1 million, I don't know, Instagram followers. So I'm interested to hear, because I've been an entrepreneur for many years and I've seen Michael's career and I've used his products, to hear from his story about how straightforward it must have been for you over the last 20 or so years.
Yeah, very straightforward. Straight line like this.
I guess as much.
Course.
Thank you. Good night.
Of course. No, a ridiculous, crazy, mind-bending roller coaster is how I usually describe it. And I think that's most of our lives. Ups and downs, roundabouts. Especially as an entrepreneur, you have these soaring highs and crushing lows, sometimes in the very same day. And you need a lot of physical wellness and health to cope with that. You need a lot of mental health to cope with that, and strength. And I've definitely had some crazy adventures and bumps and bruises, which I'll talk a little bit about. And just before I dive into it, I just want to reiterate what you said at the start. What an amazing event this is. I think we're seeing this incredible wave breaking around mental health. Just a few years ago, people didn't really talk about it. It was so in the shadows. It was something to be embarrassed about. How ridiculous is that, given that, our minds are just as important as our bodies? Why do we not treat them with the same respect? So a festival that is kind of throwing the windows open and having people tell their stories and celebrate and have fun and dance into the early hours, I think is amazing. So brilliant job. And this is the first, hopefully, of decades of future events.
We have committed to 25 years, by the way. I will be 70 in our 25th year, so I'll be passing it on to that lady there, because we like her. Yeah, but thank you. That's very kind. But I'd like to. I'm just going to pick up with your adventures, because you said you had some highs and lows. So, are there any in particular that have shaped you or helped you get to where you are now?
Goodness, yeah, many along the way. My first business was selling rocks outside my parents' house in Marlow, sitting on the driveway. Great business model, I thought, because the rocks were free, so I had huge margins. But no one bought any of my rocks. It was quite heartbreaking, and realized as an entrepreneur you have to add value to whatever you're doing. So I picked myself up, dusted myself off, went off to university, set up a business with my buddy Tom Boardman called Firebox, selling toys and gadgets and games. And that was challenging. One of the biggest issues entrepreneurs have is raising money. And our bank manager at the time didn't know what the internet was. This is in the late 90s. We had no rich friends or family, no network to tap into. And so that was a really scary time. We came close to packing it all in. And we got creative, as all entrepreneurs have to do. And we saw this advert in the local newspaper looking for people to sell their bodies to medical science. And we took ourselves off to Merthyr Tydfil for a week, where we were injected with a brand new anti-migraine drug, 36 times, I think. We survived, got paid £400 each, and that was our seed money to launch the business. So that was a crazy beginning, and my mum was so impressed that we survived. She gave us £1,000, and we were underway. So that business was wild. Then from there, my other big passion is games, and I created Mind Candy and Moshi Monsters, which from the outside looked like this incredible soaring success, which for many years it was doing really well. We had tens of millions of users. We did a movie and a music album and books and toys. But then, as fast as it grew, it came down, and that was terrifying. You know, we thought we were going to be the next Disney. We thought everything we touched would turn to gold, and then to go from that to suddenly having articles written in the press saying how awful the business was. We had to let 200 people go, which is just absolutely heartbreaking for everyone involved. Revenues collapsed, and so that was probably the most stressful part of my career, and that wasn't much fun. And I learned firsthand how seriously damaging chronic stress is for the human body.
So on that subject, so you've got this, because I remember that time very well, and you were having a lot of press interviews, and you were very much, I would say, the poster boy of Silicon Roundabout. You know, this character who's got this amazing company, and it's flying, and it's going to be the next Disney, and all this stuff. So this kind of, there must have been a tension, I guess, between this public persona and perhaps how you were feeling on your own, or at 3 o'clock in the morning, or that kind of thing.
Definitely, yeah. And you have to put on a brave, smiley face every morning, because you've got a team of people waiting to find out where we're going, and you don't want to spook them and let them know things aren't all rosy and wonderful. But behind closed doors, I was just in pieces. You know, I wasn't sleeping. I would wake up at 3 a.m. every single night in a cold sweat, feeling like I'd let all my investors down, my friends, my family, my employees. It was really, really tough. And, I've read all about the theory of what stress does to the human body, but experiencing it firsthand is shocking. It screws with your memory, your creativity, you have headaches, backaches. It just manifests in so many different ways. And that wasn't much fun.
But did you recognize that at the time?
I knew I wasn't feeling great. I knew something was up. But we kind of just get caught in our own heads and just think, I just got to keep on going, keep plowing onwards. And didn't really know what to do about it. That just felt like that is what it means to be working hard at a job or to be an entrepreneur. It's just part and parcel of entrepreneurial life.
So in some ways, I guess, and I can relate to this from my own experience, is this sort of persona or role of the entrepreneur, or the successful person, that requires this investment of your energy and time. And could you talk a bit about, so the sort of, you must have been speaking to lots of people, and you were very high profile, like the kind of, how did that make you feel when you're having to maintain this jokey, Moshi Monsters quirky character, whilst at the same time being sort of eroded in your kind of mental health?
Yeah, it's like you're putting on a mask every day to go out and face the world. So yeah, and living that kind of almost dual existence definitely takes its toll. It's not good at all. So as I say, I was super stressed, not sleeping well, all these issues, and luckily I had a very good buddy, Alex Chu, who is here in the audience, my co-founder in Calm, as Alex, and we used to share a house in Soho. Which probably wasn't the healthiest place to live, out partying and all the crazy stuff that goes on in Soho. And we'd talk about life and business and projects and ideas. And Alex had been into meditation and the mind ever since he was a teenager, a very kind of precocious teenager. He talked to me and introduced me originally to meditation and mindfulness. And I'll be honest, I didn't really get it. I thought it was, I thought it had all this, I thought it had religious connotations. I thought it, I'd have to get dressed up in orange robes and daub myself in patchouli oil and live up a mountain in Tibet. And I think so many people have this preconceived notions and this baggage around it. And what kind of lit the fuse for me, the light bulb, was realizing that it can be those things if you want it to. It can be a very spiritual thing, but at its essence, at its heart, it's about rewiring the human brain. Its foundation is neuroscience, and that's what got me super excited. And Alex and I now want to share this incredibly valuable, life-changing skill with the world through Calm.
So you are having this tough time with Moshi Monsters, and Moshi Monsters went up and then they went down. So did you discover mindfulness and meditation during that time, or was that afterwards?
It was during that time, but because I was caught up in the tornado of running the business, I didn't really have time to research it and look into it properly. And I did something that I'd never done before, which I'd highly recommend, which was going on holiday on my own. And I took myself away for 2 weeks. Ordinarily, years ago, I'd have thought that was a really weird thing to do. But it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And I went away to Austria, went into the mountains, played tennis in the morning, went for long walks, read a lot of books, and did a lot of thinking. And that was when I had the time to realize, wow, this skill is phenomenal. There's no wonder people have been practicing meditation for thousands of years. There's really something here. And so Alex and I were talking about how we can take this ancient wisdom and make it accessible and relatable and simple for the Western world, which, as we know, is becoming faster and faster, more stressed, and there's so many mental health issues in our modern society.
Well, exactly, and I think this is something that obviously we're all here today talking about that. And for those that don't know, Michael's app is called Calm, and Calm was voted or nominated or awarded the #1 app in the App Store by Apple last year, which is something. Yeah, well, that is something, and I think it's in and of itself is something. Obviously, an amazing achievement for you and your team, but the fact that a meditation and mindfulness app is voted or not awarded that status is itself interesting.
Definitely interesting. I think it just shows the zeitgeist that's going on at the moment. And Apple tap into that. In previous years, it was Instagram, it was Periscope. And I think for them to say the #1 app out of the 2.2 million in the App Store is an app around meditation and mindfulness is showing what's happened to the world and why this is so important. And how our phones, these incredible devices, these supercomputers we carry with us everywhere, can be used for good or for bad. And the human mind, the apps that most of them have been created almost turn us into zombies with the endless scrolling and the social media and the games, the dopamine frazzled kind of addictive nature that I think is doing a lot of harm to people's sleep and their attention and their relationships with other people. But at the same time, mobile phones can be used in an incredibly healthy, positive way. And I think apps like Calm and Headspace and the many others are showing that can happen. It's a tool. It's how you use it that matters.
And so you, am I right, you have 25 million downloads? And how, from that, so you must get feedback from that community. And so what's driving them to have downloaded your app?
So, some of the Calm team are here today, Jade and Hardip. And they every day get hundreds and hundreds of emails from people all around the world. And I think what's blown us away is the breadth of people that use the product. We've heard of everything from little kids who use Calm before an exam, through to people in nursing homes who use it at end of life. through to busy, stressed executives. We have celebrity users, politicians. The incredible thing is it's all walks of life. We think this is relevant for everybody. 7 billion people can use a product, can use a skill to help them understand and navigate the world, not just to thrive in the 20th century, not just to survive, but to thrive. And that's why I think it's catching on, and it's just being spread so fast by word of mouth.
And so, and what specifically, though, so people are here, they come for the afternoon, and they're in a job. So why would you consider meditation or mindfulness practice to help you get on?
So I'm curious, actually, to know, has anyone ever tried meditating? Oh, great. Preaching to the converted in this audience. Should have known. Does anyone do it every single day? Amazing. So it's not easy to build it into a practice. And it is essentially a practice. And I think a lot of people misunderstand it. As I said, there's all this baggage that it comes with. But I think one way to think about it that really helped for me and many other people is that it's like going to the gym for your mind. We go to the gym and we work out, we lift weights, or we run on the treadmill, and we are strengthening those body parts. We do it again and again and again. And when we meditate, we're strengthening the mind. So what we do is we focus on a constant. It could be a mantra, or with Calm, you're focusing on your breath. You breathe something like 500 or 600 million times in your lifetime, most of it unconsciously, and we're not even aware of it. But when you stop the racing thoughts, the hamster wheel, the monkey mind, as most of our minds are throughout the day, and you let it pause and you let it settle, and you focus on that breath, and then what will happen is your mind will wander. And you acknowledge that, you recognize it, and then you bring your focus back to your breath. And then your mind will wander again. You'll be thinking about your Instagram account and why you only had 6 likes the other day, or you've got someone you got to call next week, or what was that funny look someone gave you? And then you bring your focus back to your breath, and you do it again and again. And the more you do this, the stronger your mind becomes. You build up that attention muscle. And this is why it's so important to meditate regularly. Not for multiple hours at a time, you can. But what's super valuable is something as light as 10 or 20 minutes every morning, and it makes such a massive difference. So in everyday life, what starts to happen is you become a master of your mind rather than a slave. The mind is a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. And when you flip that and you start to recognize what your mind is doing, the flights of fancy, the rumination, the ways you just get yanked around, it's so powerful, so life-changing. And you start to, instead of reacting and coming from the amygdala, as most of us do in everyday life, you respond to situations. So something does something to you, instead of, you have a fraction of a second to go, how do I want to respond to this? And that changes everything.
So do you think that's the biggest... So the experience you had through Moshi Monsters, and then you had this sort of time away, and you were able to better integrate the meditation. Do you think that's the single most important thing you learned?
Yes, I've learned lots of crazy things along the way, but I think probably the most valuable skill I've learned in my life has been, meditation, my meditation practice, and the mindfulness that flows from it.
And could you give some examples of, so how does that translate into every day? I mean, what does that mean in real money? How does that work day to day?
So as I say, you stop getting yanked around by your emotions. You are more thoughtful in your interactions with people. Your empathy increases. You start to look at the world through other people's eyes. And it's interesting, actually, when you meet people, you can spot people who meditate and those who don't. You kind of see a sort of frenziedness in their eyes. It's helped me sleep better. So, one little example is my mind would ruminate, like most people, round and round it would go at night, thinking of a zillion different things. And now I can recognize that at, when I'm trying to drift off to sleep and go, okay, I can deal with those thoughts tomorrow. I'm just going to focus on my breath and get to sleep. And it's so much easier now to fall asleep.
So you're on this new journey, your new adventure with Calm, which is obviously going very well. You've got all this amazing response from the world and from the industry. You're using these tools. So can you give us some peeks behind the curtain of Calm? Because you're going through this journey, and again, from the outside in, it seems like, wow, you're smashing it, but you've had to move. You're in a different country. Silicon Valley is not exactly known for sort of slack hours. It's a very intense environment. So how does that feel now, after having that intense London Moshi Monsters experience? You're now in a different experience, but in San Francisco.
Yeah, so Alex moved out to Silicon Valley before me, and we felt it would be the best place to run a business like this. I love London, love building businesses here. We come back and forth quite a lot. But there was something there. There's something in the water, the secret sauce of Silicon Valley, a great place to build a tech company, and a very open-minded place to thinking about the world in new ways and different ways of looking at consciousness, and very open-minded to meditation. So those combinations felt like a great place to do it. And it's been a long journey. Calm was set up. We bought the domain name calm.com in 2012. We launched the app in 2013. And again, people think it's like an overnight success. It's been years and years of tweaking and iterating and A/B testing. Investors wouldn't give us the time of day in the early days. Alex spoke to over 100 to get our first seed investors back at the start. As recently as a year ago, we couldn't raise any more financing. But I think something's happened in the last 12 months or so. I think not just with the growth of Calm, but just the wider world picking up on mindfulness and mental health. It's gone from the shadows into the light. And I think that is just bringing everyone out who is talking about it and wanting to understand it. And I think that's such an incredibly important, positive thing for the world.
I agree, and it definitely seems like a shift. One of the things, I run a company, a small business, a technology company, and one of the things that I'm aware of, or more aware of now, is the mental health and well-being of my team. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how in a fast-growing, I guess, maturing startup that's growing rapidly, how do you maintain your team's mental health?
So I think Alex and I, because we meditate, I'd like to believe we're better leaders. It makes us a bit calmer, I hope. We don't throw chairs around the room. We haven't yet. We haven't screamed and shouted. And I think people respect and connect with leaders who are more balanced and calm, coping with the ups and downs of entrepreneurial life. One of the best things I think we do at Calm is a daily meditation every morning as a team. And I remember I was speaking to a British journalist about this a few months ago. I told him this, and he started laughing his head off. And he said, "That is the most California thing I've ever heard of." And I was like, well, is it really that crazy to come into the office in the morning and instead, like most of us, spill our coffee over our keyboard, take our coat off before we've even done while we're doing our first email, not even say good morning to our colleagues? What is wrong with sitting down as a team and meditating for 10 minutes, looking each other in the eye afterwards, wishing each other good morning? I think that's one of the secret weapons to Calm, why we've done so much, why we're such an incredible team on the same wavelength with just 30 people. And so yeah, that's one of the
what do you say the sort of tangible benefits of that are? I mean, obviously we've talked about the meditation benefits for you and your role, but as a team, what are the benefits of that shared experience every day?
Well, I think it's helping everyone develop a meditation practice. We become more mindful in the office in terms of our interactions. It's crazy to think that we spend most of our time, not with our friends or family, we spend most of our waking hours with our colleagues. And so you better make sure they're people that you get on with and you enjoy and you like. You better make sure what you're working on and pouring your heart and soul into is something you're passionate about. And I think developing a meditation practice and being mindful about your work helps you do that and answer those questions.
Very good. And I'm going to have a couple more questions between us, and I think we'll throw it open to the audience to ask some questions. But I'm curious to know, for myself, what are your tips for anybody who's either in a job, wanting to progress, or running a company and wanting to build their business, from this sort of turmoil you've had over the years and this kind of incredible entrepreneurial experience? What practical thing can they go away with today that's going to help them tonight?
Well, lots of different things. Where to begin?
It can't be meditation.
Okay. I read a great book the other day called Lost Connections. You know, one of the biggest mental health crises in the world is depression. You know, it affects so many millions and millions of people and growing all the time. And the standard way that doctors treat depression is through antidepressants. And this has been done for decades, and it works for some people, but it's not a panacea, and it doesn't work for many, many people. And this book talks about how there are many other lifestyle changes one can make, and one of them is meditation, which I won't mention, but seems so obvious and simple, but it is life-changing when you start to incorporate these into your life. So getting vitamin D every day, at least 15 minutes of sunlight to reset your internal clock, making sure you have the right balance of omega-3 and omega-6 oils in your body, getting enough sleep. People brag about how little sleep they get. It's absolutely insane. Sleep is such a foundation, and knowing how much you need every night. And not just the hours, but the body loves predictability, and waking up at the same time every day is important. Connecting with nature is really powerful. Getting out of these concrete jungles that we spend most of our hours in, connecting with other people, other human beings. And so the book is about these lost connections. No wonder we have this depression and anxiety and mental health crisis, because our brains evolved over tens of thousands of years in a very different environment, where we were connected with our tribe every day, where we lived within nature. And when you stop and think about it, as I say, it seems so obvious, but making those little changes a little bit every day can make an enormous difference on someone's life. And then just a few other kind of practical tips, things that I've done that have changed my life. I don't use my phone in bed. I used to tap out emails every night, and I'd usually fall asleep with a phone glued to my face. 65% of people, something crazy like this, check their phone before they even get out of bed. You know, to me, it's almost like smoking in bed. It's that bad. Starting your day with your phone, filling it with thoughts of Donald Trump and God knows what else, is such a bad way. So I don't use my phone. I keep it on airplane mode until I've left the house and I'm sitting in a coffee shop. And it's incredible when you give the brain the freedom to start daydreaming and thinking how that can change your life. And yeah, lots of other little things as well, but I think that's probably the biggest one.
And just one more question before we sort of throw it out to the room. And so there's we're here doing our thing in this festival. You must get exposed to leaders in government or the world out there. Do you think there's a kind of appetite in or recognition, perhaps in bigger corporations or bigger companies, about these issues? And what's your observations of how that's affecting the world of work?
Yeah, it's starting. I think one of the biggest trends we've seen is wellness at work, and about bloody time. You know, it's crazy that employers obviously have a responsibility to look after the welfare of their team, but they're starting to now realize how it impacts the bottom line. Of course, it's positive and healthy for a business if your employees are not stressed and anxious and depressed and they're getting enough sleep. So we're starting to see it now with healthy food in the canteens, with yoga classes. We're seeing so many companies reach out to us to try and incorporate mindfulness into their workplace. And we're seeing it at government as well. One of the really exciting trends over the last few years is mindfulness being taught in schools. Again, 4 or 5 years ago, this would have been laughed at as a ridiculous idea, and now it's gaining such incredible momentum. And Alex and I, a few years ago, saw a quote by the Dalai Lama that said, if every 8-year-old in the world was taught meditation, we could eliminate violence in a generation. And we were like, wow, that's pretty powerful. And so we decided to make Calm free for every teacher in the world. And we have tens of thousands of teachers now bringing mindfulness into the classroom. And it seems so obvious. But why do children not start their day with just 1 minute of mindfulness and silence before everything else? I think it's more important, or at least as important as everything else they're taught. And in the studies that have been done, it lowers truancy, it reduces aggression, it leads to higher grades and empathy between students. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Very good. Well, that's a fantastic conversation. But I think I'd like to hear what you guys think. So if we can open up the house lights a little bit so we can see. I can see a hand waving in the background. I'm going to come over with the microphone so you can all hear. Here we go. I'm going to break my neck here. Watch this. Health and safety.
Hi, thanks so much, Michael. Really, really insightful stuff. Sam Appleby from Pilotfish. I wanted to ask about your experience with Calm and getting it into, I guess, making it appealing to a mass audience. So what you said about, I guess, the reaction to spiritual connotations around things like meditation and mindfulness really ring true for me. And I really struggled with getting the messaging right so that when we talk about these things and the benefits of it, it doesn't come across that way. So what was your experience in communicating Calm? And was there, I guess, a tipping point in the way you communicated, which made it really accessible to a much more mainstream audience?
Yeah, so there are thousands of mindfulness and meditation apps in the App Store, or at least hundreds. And there's a huge amount of free content on YouTube and elsewhere. So Alex and I were very conscious about building a brand around this, something that set it apart from the way most people think about meditation and mindfulness. We didn't want a word that had religious connotations, or we didn't want to use that iconography and branding that most people associate with it. We wanted to make it cool and, as I say, simple and accessible, and talk more about the neuroscience than the religion. And I think starting with a name like Calm was a really good starting point. That's something that is universally understood and valuable for people, and not intimidating or not scary. And the way we've seen most of our growth has not been through advertising, it's been through word of mouth. It's people discovering the product and then sharing it with their friends, and that's the most powerful way to build any business. And then one final thing to say on it is we launched a little over a year ago something called Sleep Stories, and we recognized that if we could create mindful stories to help people drift off to sleep every night, mixing music and sound effects, that could be an amazing way of helping people cure insomnia. And so that's been a way of bringing new people into Calm without any discussion of meditation. And so they come for the sleep and then they stay and discover the meditation afterwards. So those are some of the things we've done.
Great. Excuse me. Coming over. Thank you.
Hi, Michael. My name's Hannah, and you talked a little bit about the double-edged sword nature of technology. So it's so good in so many ways, and then it can be so destructive. It can encourage loneliness and social anxiety and isolation. What should we be investing in our energy and our money and our time? Kind of keep technology a positive force. Are there any kind of, other than meditation apps, which there are loads of them already, kind of how do you see it kind of being positive moving forwards?
Yeah, I think the conversation is definitely accelerated in the last year or so. For many, many years, the big tech companies were very, very focused on increasing the amount of time you spent on their websites and apps. There were thousands of people, very smart people on the other side of the screen, optimizing and tweaking to make sure you would stay on it as long as possible. And I think this shift has happened where we've realized that cannot continue and it's doing so much damage to people. So one of the ways we can do that is just being more conscious of the way we use our devices. We've seen it with, in previous generations, smoking. It was the most natural thing to smoke in the office, smoke around children, smoke on airplanes, and suddenly the society shifted and the conversation started, and we've obviously, thankfully, come full circle on that. And I think it's just starting to happen with our phones. But unlike smoking, our phones and technology can be incredible, and it's about using it for good, not bad, and being aware of how we use it. I think that's absolutely the key.
Any more? One at the front.
Good afternoon. Just to the same point that you made and Sam made earlier, regards to technology and the use of that. So you mentioned that the last tip that you gave down at the end was not to use technology in bed, that you don't use your phone in bed. But obviously, for an insomnia app or even for Calm, or to start one's day with meditation practice, that might involve perhaps using a telephone in bed. And the woman over here, when you answered her question, your answer was individual responsibility, but you did touch on the responsibility of a technology company as well. So, and I'm afraid I'm not familiar with your app, and I don't know whether you have this or not, but would you consider maybe having an option of nobody being able to use Calm for a certain number of hours, so it forces them not to use their phone even for their meditation practice at night, in the same way that you said you've made it available for academics and for teachers for free? Would you also then consider addressing the negative side of the nature of your business, which is technology, by building that into your app itself?
Well, the technology is the tool. The mobile phone is the tool, as I say, and there are positive apps and there are negative apps on our health. And we think, we're obviously biased, but we think Calm and developing a meditation practice is a very valuable, useful way of using your phone. So when I say I don't use it in bed, to listen to a sleep story, I wouldn't be looking at the screen. It would be on the bedside table playing. What is happening, I think the big tech companies are starting to build in healthier ways, making it easier for us to use our phones healthier through the actual operating systems. So Apple last week at WWC announced ways that we can limit our use of certain apps. We can see how much we spent on certain apps, and that's a really healthy way of making sure we're using them in the ways we want to and not the ways that are unhealthy for us. So Google announced similar things at I.O. the other day. Yeah, it's starting to happen, but there is a lot of individual responsibility as well.
Thank you. A question down here.
Hi, Michael. So I had a question. Obviously, at the beginning you mentioned with Calm it was quite difficult to be able to raise investment. What advice do you have for new entrepreneurs in the space, tackling such a huge movement and not kind of seeing the reciprocating side from the sort of financial sphere? And how do you, deal with the stress, all of that?
Yeah, so again, I think because mental health and mindfulness are becoming more popular and part of the general zeitgeist and conversation, it is definitely getting easier. It's very competitive out there, so I wouldn't recommend launching a mindfulness app. No, I'm kidding. There are many out there, and I think that the way we think about it is it's not a winner-takes-all market, like a network effect, like eBay won auctions and Amazon has pretty much won e-commerce. We think there will be multiple winners. There'll be kids apps, and there'll be apps for all sorts of different aspects of life. In the way that the closest analogy might be fitness. 50 years ago, it wasn't the done thing to go jogging or do aerobics or yoga, and then doctors and celebrities and the conversation started. And look what's happened over the last 50 years. Nike has been built, Adidas, Puma, dozens of very successful brands. So we think the same thing is going to happen. So it's still hard always to raise money, but I think it's getting easier because investors now realize that not only is this good for the world, but obviously they're looking at this with their checkbook. They can see there's a lot of commercial potential here, and that's how you get investors excited.
Any other questions? There's one at the back. Coming through. Watch your back.
Hi, Michael. Michelle. Are we on? Hey. Thank you, as always, for... Thanks for sharing your story.
You're welcome, Michelle.
I know you guys are really ambitious. Can you share with us this afternoon what some of that ambition looks like for Calm, and how will you manage and look after your own mental health in that growth?
Yes, so Alex and I are very ambitious. We love building businesses. We love being entrepreneurs. And we think we found something here that we could potentially devote the rest of our careers to. This is one of those rare examples that is good for the world, but also very commercially successful as well. So we still feel like we're at an incredibly early stage. We have 25 million downloads, but that's less than 1% of the smartphones in the world. We are profitable. We just raised a round of financing at a $250 million valuation. And again, it seems crazy that just a year ago, there were 9 of us working out of a 1-bedroom apartment and no one would give us the time of day. So I hope that's, kind of an insight into how fast this movement is developing. And we want to build one of the most valuable and meaningful brands in the world. We think this can be up there with the Samsungs and the Nikes and the Apples and the McDonald's of the world. And we need this in the 21st century. And we want to continue growing the number of subscribers we've got to the app. We want to take it offline as well. We would love to have Calm shops, Calm clothing, Calm magazines. We did a Calm book with Penguin. We love the idea of Calm hotels that are all about sort of your mental health and getting a good night's sleep. Ultimately, we want to buy an island and call it Calm Island. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I don't mention that in investor meetings anymore because they show me the door. But you're all welcome once we finally buy it, and we'll do this festival there in a couple of years' time. Big, bold, crazy plans ahead. Oh, and how to manage our mental health. Well, we'll continue meditating every morning. We'll continue making sure we get good sleep and fresh air and sunshine and eating well and looking after each other and our team. And hopefully not burning ourselves out along the way.
All right, time for very good. I want time for one more question, then we'll just wrap it up. So any more questions? Anyone? Here we go.
Hi, Michael. My question is more around, I've been practicing meditation because I struggle to keep the routine. Do you have any tips about that?
Say it again, practicing meditation. Yes. Yes, so there's this great app called Calm, which will, if you want, send you a polite, mindful notification at the time you want to help remind you. The human brain is very good at knowing what it should do to be healthy and very bad at actually doing it, which is why we see a huge surge in downloads in January for New Year's resolutions, and gym memberships go through the roof. One of the other tips I'd give is something called anchoring, which is to connect your meditation practice to something you do instinctively every day. So 70, 80 years ago, people didn't brush their teeth every day, and now, hopefully, everyone does. And so one idea is to meditate before or after you brush your teeth, or before or after you have a morning shower, or before lunch, or something that helps build it into that regular daily practice. And so, hopefully that will help.
That's really good advice, I think. And by the way, he gave me a free code for a year of Calm, and I've been using it because I've needed a lot of calm in the last 2 weeks. Just saying.
You're looking very calm, so yeah.
My chin's going mental.
All of ours are, don't worry. Mine are running around like lunatics at the moment too.
Indeed. So one of the points of this entire thing was about ambition, actually, because it's prompted by your vision and ambition for your business. This is one, for me, is one of the great joys of my life, is to have an idea and then try and get it away. And this is one of them. And I'm quite amazed that it's actually happening. But for me, that fun adventure, to have an idea and make it happen, is almost part of the point of life. And so I want to kind of underscore that, because one of the things that I really hope everybody can get from today is that mental health, when I have depression, I still like to do crazy shit. So, it's a very serious topic, and you have to take your mental health seriously. But it doesn't mean that your life has to be really sensible. And so I think that's something I want to just reiterate. I think that's fantastic and a great inspiration for me to hear your ambition. And I think that's something that I very much hope that people come away from today and think, just go for it, try and get ahead. But the process which you choose to try and get achieve those goals, just fine-tune that. So there's some good practical advice today. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming. And should we do a selfie? Speaking of the evils of social media, let's show everyone else what they're missing. All right.
Here we go.
Get the crowd behind us.
Everyone pull the rod.
Great.
That's fantastic. Before you all finish up, because I'll be having for a few more minutes, I'm going to, while he's tweeting, listen, Instagram does not update itself. Just saying. Get on it.
It's about using it mindfully. That's the key. Yeah, not every minute.
I just like to ask you one question, because again, we all focus on work, productivity, businesses, and investment. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, what attracted me to this event was the idea that it was a festival. So I love live music. I used to organize a music festival called Berwickstock in Soho years ago. So this felt like sort of tapping into that punk crazy spirit. So yeah, music. I love parties and events and connecting with people. I love traveling around the world. I play a lot of poker. Yeah, again, not the most mindful game in the world, but a lot of fun. Huge fan of tennis, and something we haven't talked about is the importance of exercise. Again, you know, we're so sedentary. We spend most of our hours sitting at a desk, so standing desks, I think, are very important. And yeah, doing at least, even if it's just one push-up a day, just making sure you move in some conscious way every single day is really important.
Very good. Well, I think that's fantastic, and it's great to hear a bit behind the curtain and his Michael's story. So thank you again. Please, big round of applause. I'd like to finish by saying we will be running Getahead Festival on Calm Island.
Definitely. You heard it here first, all right? We're going to do it. Sometime in the next 25 years. All right, couple of years. Well, it depends how fast we grow. So yeah, go and download Calm. Check us out. And if you want to ask me any other questions, I'm at Acton on Twitter. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. And Calm is at Calm across all social media. So yeah, come and find us and say hello.